what do you make of this wonderful trope of writing poems that are clouds? And in particular, in this case, the poem is a cloud in the shape of not just haiku, but of misunderstanding haiku. Am I wrong that there's a kind of paradox in there that haiku could possibly be cloudy, shapeless, formless? That's so funny. It's so interesting a way to think about haiku. What do you think of that
Yeah, I
title?
think when I think of haikus, I think of one of the most kind of rigidly structured, most sort of technically exact forms of poetry they are. And there's,
Right.
a huge opposition there between the formal constraint of haiku and the sort of formlessness of clouds. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Kate, what do you think more on this? Like, you're a poet. If you were tasking yourself to write poems that are cloudy, formless, shapeless, moving, amorphous, I guess would be the word, um, how could it possibly put a poet in mind of haiku? What is the tension there, and what's the possibility? It seems like there's a great opportunity.
Well, haiku typically addresses nature, but in um, exacting full stop images, like Emily was saying. And so the clouds are paradoxical, not paradoxical, but a difficult subject for haiku because they're shifting, vaporous things
Right.
and momentary. So
Yeah.
the haiku has this sort of is self-contained, but the cloud is always shifting and moving and
Yeah.
modulating.
Yeah. So Molly and Dave, I think the stanzas are haiku-like. Each stanza has 3 lines. They're not really haiku, they're more syllables than haiku, but insofar as they are haiku-like, could you pick one and extract it? Each of you, Dave and Molly, pick one and extract it and treat it like a haiku? Do any of the individual pieces behave like a haiku? Do they create a specific enough image? Or do they all resist? Each one, each part resists like a cloud. What do you think, Molly? Can you pick one that might be good to talk about?
Well, right away, the first one seems pretty literal how it opens. This swoops like a hurried neck tattoo.
So
So
that would be
that,
like a cloud.
yeah, so that draws me into an image of, maybe a sloppy neck tattoo. I don't know why I picked this one. But
But
then
a
we
neck
go,
tattoo that's not been applied very well, a hurried one.
right, exactly. But then it sort of veers. We have a space and then it goes somewhere else with returning to the pump handle, passing off sunk costs. So there is that place where it shifts and it becomes
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah. So it's visual, specifically visual, but as you move along, you realize that like a cloud, it's just going to change its visuality and its metaphor. I already like it. I mean, I already like this. Dave, I guess we're going to emerge, the 5 of us, to seeing this poem as something of either a critique of imagistic writing or at least a kind of post-imagistic writing. But before we do that, Dave, pick another one and take us through it.
It's interesting because I find that these have this form element that echoes haiku, but individually they seem different enough from haiku. They're not just images. To me, haiku seems to represent this idea where the author is sort of subsumed into the background. And here it seems like the commentary is still in driving each stanza here. It's interesting because for me, haiku is almost like a communitarian approach where the author would be identified as just being first and foremost part of the collective, whereas like, imagistic stuff is almost libertarian, where the author wants to be front and center to specifically have the freedom. And these stanzas seem imagistic in that sense where they're using this form, but the author is still making a commentary. It's not like a haiku sitting back having an objective observation of this epiphatic moment in time of nature.
Wow. Wow. So your political metaphors, political ideological metaphors.
Apologize for that.
No, please don't apologize. I mean, I think you're saying something about what Ken Taylor is trying to achieve with his trope of poems as clouds. How would you translate that into politics? Is he casting doubt upon that libertarian strain in imagism?
Yeah, I have two thoughts about the use of clouds and then the political metaphor. Like, to me, the imagistic process, the fact that there's a manifesto for imagism, I think is kind of funny. And I don't mean to make it less serious than it is, but it reminds me of the Monty Python movie Life of Brian, the scene where Brian is telling the crowd, you must think for yourselves. You're all individuals. Yes, we are all individuals. And to me, like, that's the Imagist manifesto saying, you must be free. Everybody, you must be free. Follow this path to be free. And it seems like it can be seen as contrived in that way. So
its tone, maybe. Oh, you're taking us somewhere. The tone of this poem, which I find to be fun sometimes, even a little goofy, or free. Sorry to use that word. Free in the sense of what Molly pointed out in that first stanza. You know, like just shifting from the outrageously fabulous analogy of a cloud like a hurried necktie to moving to the pump handle, passing off sunk costs. That's really kind of magnificent, showy, show-offy, you know?
Yeah.
It's got that tone.